I want to conclude today my discussion of James Madison and his contribution to the making of America. This is part of my PragerU video series. You can watch all these videos, 5 of them, at prageru.com. Here's a clip from the Madison video, just to give you a feel for what it sounds like.
The preamble to the American Constitution begins with the phrase, "We the people." But could the people of America be counted on to do the right thing all or even most of the time? The principal architect of the Constitution, James Madison, gave this question a great deal of thought. His answer was a decided no.
No. And Madison, by the way, was not alone. I think all the founders, to varying degrees, had this, I would call it, low view or skeptical view of human nature. Not totally skeptical, by the way. Essentially, Madison and the founders thought of humans as intermediate between sort of the angels and the devils. So we're not good enough to be angels. And in fact, famously in the Federalist Papers, Madison writes, "If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary." So the task of government, says Madison, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed. That's majority rule. And in the second place, oblige it to control itself. And it's to this problem that Madison sets his peculiar youthful genius. Here's Madison again. "Whenever there is an interest and power to do wrong," he says, "wrong will generally be done." So, how do we control this problem? The problem is, by the way, the tyranny of the majority. Because let's remember that the idea of a democratic society was presented as an alternative to tyranny. Let's take the power from the one, the king in England, and give it to the many, the people. And Madison now raises the question, who's going to protect us from the people? Which is to say, who's going to protect us from the majority using its power against the minority? To take the possessions of the minority, to curtail the freedom of the minority. This, by the way, appears to be the Biden agenda. They're trying to say, yeah, we're going to use democracy to make you do this and make you do that. And so Madison was alert to this. Nothing could be more relevant than Madison's solutions to this problem. He wants to try to prevent tyrannies, not just to block tyrannies once they are established, but to prevent them from being established in the first place. Now, how do we do that? Madison offers 5 ways, and I'm going to enumerate them very quickly. First, a written constitution. And the written constitution is a super law. And by super law, I mean it overrides the will of the majority. Madison is sometimes called the father of the Constitution. Why? Because he's the one that got the Constitution through, that got it passed. And one of the things that the Constitution specifies really clearly is the power of the government is limited. It's not unlimited. Even if it's empowered by the majority, they can't do anything. They can do this, this, and this, but nothing else. Now, let's remember, prior to the American Constitution, no country had a constitution, a written constitution that had this kind of super legal authority. America was the first. Second, Madison pushed through, and he was really the architect of this, the Bill of Rights. Jefferson supported the Bill of Rights, but Jefferson wasn't present when the Constitution was being debated and was being approved. So Jefferson advocated from a distance, but Madison is the one who got it through. Other people, like Hamilton, by the way, opposed the Bill of Rights, not because Hamilton was against rights. Hamilton thought the Constitution is the Bill of Rights. Why do we need a Bill of Rights that says government can't do this and that? Because we haven't given the government the power to do any of those things. But the Bill of Rights has proved to be, over the years, a very valuable check on majority power. And if courts are vigilant in enforcing these rights, as they should be, protect free speech, protect the Second Amendment right to bear arms, protect the Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable search and seizure, and so on, these rights are to be protected against the majority. Then, representative government. The idea here that we don't have a direct democracy, we elect people and they act, in a sense, in our stead. Madison said that America is, in a sense, a republic rather than a democracy. Why? Because of this particular feature of the people not ruling directly as in ancient Athens, but ruling in a filtered way through representatives. Next, separation of powers. Now, Madison didn't invent this. You can read this in Montesquieu, the European thinker, in The Spirit of the Laws, the idea of dividing power between a legislature, an executive, and a judiciary. Madison and the founders strongly believed that where the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary are one, that's the very definition of tyranny. They don't have to do anything. Just by being one, you have a tyrannical government. And notice that this is actually what the Biden administration wants to do. They would love to have an executive, a legislature, and a judiciary that are in a sense one, that are acting in cahoots with each other and are acting to support each other and push the same agenda. So, not just separation of powers, which I mentioned, but also checks and balances. And interestingly, this is something that Montesquieu didn't come up with. Montesquieu came up with the separation, but what was added to this is not only do you have separation, each branch can kind of oversee the other. So to take an example of this mutual oversight, Congress can make a law, but the president can veto it. And vetoes can be only overridden by a kind of congressional supermajority. Now, the president and his executive branch can enforce the law, but there's congressional and judicial oversight. The judiciary is appointed, not elected, but the judiciary is nominated, the Chief Justice and the Associate Justices by the President. They have to be confirmed by the Senate. So here you see, it's not a complete list, but I'm giving you an idea of Madison's philosophical statesmanship. He says that you need, quote, inventions of prudence to do what? To supply what he calls the defect of better motives. Because human beings are not angels, we need to have institutional ways to check power. And Madison's constitutional architecture, I think, a work of profound genius, a great gift to subsequent generations. But of course, the constitutional architecture only works if we use it.